All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today to learn about HubSpot's new service object. I know people are going to be trickling in here over the next few minutes, but we've got some people right away so we can jump into things. I'm going to do a quick intro and then we're going to get into all the slides. But I'm Kim from Arrows, and I wanted to give a background on 21B, how we know 21B, and why we were like, we have to have them on to do this webinar. So 21B Consulting is a HubSpot Solutions Partner and an Arrows partner. Noel and I actually met at Inbound last year, and it was like an instant connection. We were like, we have to work together. So it's been really fun to get to know the team. And Noel and Kevin were actually two of the people that were really pushing Arrows to integrate with the services object. It was like every call we were having, Noel was like, any update here? And so we were keeping an eye on it as a team at Arrows. And as soon as we had the ability to fully integrate with HubSpot's API and all of that, we officially announced that we were supporting the services object inside HubSpot last week. And so with that, I think there's been a lot of talk about the object, and Noel and Kevin are really experts, and they've built out their own customer onboarding process and service delivery process in the service object. So just wanted to give that background into why I thought it would be great for them to come in and share exactly how they're using it and how they recommend teams use it as well. But let's get right into it. So Kevin, I'm going to share the slide deck that we've got here. And then do you want to kick things off, and I can kind of run the intros too?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And hi, everyone. It's absolutely great to be here. We're super excited to be talking to you about this today. Kevin and I have been iterating on this for quite some time, and this is actually like such a huge passion project for us. Kim, like you're absolutely right. Like when we met at Inbound, it was that instant connection, and we're so happy to be both HubSpot Solutions partners and Arrows partners in this, because it's got such powerful opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we can start with intros. So I think the people that are joining us today, we've got a bunch of Arrows customers. So people who might already know me and know Arrows. Arrows is a HubSpot tool. So we are built specifically for HubSpot customers, and we build customer onboarding plans and digital sales rooms. We're going to be focusing on the customer onboarding plans today and how that works, because that's the tool that integrates with the service object. And that's what Noel and Kevin are talking about today. But really a great tool for customer success or sales teams that run on HubSpot. And then Noel and Kevin, do you all want to introduce yourself and give a background on yourselves?
Yeah. Kevin, can you hit that next slide?
Sure can.
Perfect. Hi, guys. My name is Noel Woodhead. I'm the CEO and founder of 21B Consulting. I have just like a huge background in tech and tech enablement and like driving operational excellence inside of companies and organizations. And I have had the just pleasure of being able to work and collaborate and just build really amazing things with Kevin for such a long time.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, Noel and I have just been building awesome things. What I've been doing really for the past 15 years is digital transformation. Whether it be a website build, a new CRM, integrations between technologies, replatforming from one to the other. So, our focus being with HubSpot at the core, obviously it made sense to partner with Arrows, especially since we use them for our own onboarding process. So really excited to show what we have in store today.
Awesome. Can we jump to the next slide? So I think we can give like a quick kind of intro too. So we're going to go through a couple slides, and Noel and Kevin are really running this, and I'm just going to add some color commentary here. But we're going to run through a couple slides, and then we're going to actually go through a demo of how to use the service object inside HubSpot for customer onboarding.
Yeah, we would love to get to know like who's on the call. Like drop your LinkedIn in the chat. We want to know where you're from, and then more importantly, like, are you using tickets? Are you using deals? Or are you using custom objects for onboarding or service delivery? Or have you not actually like taken the leap yet? We would love to kind of know where you're at right now. nice little poll here coming in.
I just tossed ours in, but at Arrows, we right now are using tickets for customer onboarding, which was like a transition that we made maybe a year ago. But we've definitely talked internally about whether or not we should move to the service object now that we can fully support it, and now that HubSpot's really built a lot around it.
Yep. Yeah, and I could say we were using tickets as well, and technically still kind of are, because we're moving into this as quickly as we possibly can. But tickets made the most sense for us.
Cool. We've got Sandra in the chat saying they're current Arrows user and use tickets. Nice. Grant uses deals.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into the real reason why we're all here today. HubSpot is just moving fast. And they just rolled out 200 new updates during the Spring Spotlight, and they are actually deploying faster than I feel like anybody can actually keep up with all of the feature releases they have coming, and truly before they can even deploy their own resources. If you are like, if like Google search, ChatGPT search, if you search service object, you're not going to find a whole lot right now. You're going to find like a little bit of a trickling, idea, some ideas that are out there. You'll find this webinar link. It's like, you'll find our webinar link here, but one of the biggest update and the rollout that we were most excited about is the launch of service objects. And it's an absolute game changer. We're gonna demo, we're gonna deep dive today. We're gonna tell you why it matters and really give you guys like a high level tactical way that you can transition this, and the way that we think that this can be leveraged.
I'll add to that really quick. The whole reason we started this webinar is because I was kind of looking into the service object. We knew we were going to launch it. I was working on the marketing, kind of like, how are we going to tell people that we use the service object? I want to learn about it. And I was like, there's not much yet. It's new to HubSpot. And there's a lot about the object library as a whole, but what can we actually do with the service object, which is why I wanted to bring the experts in to kind of share with people how it works and what you can do with it.
Yeah. So before we dive into that, just some context on like 21B and who we are. We have lived the pain. I started 21B after I had built out HubSpot to support onboarding for a scaling franchise system. I had brought them from 34 locations to 151 sold and 75 open in a year, using HubSpot and without adding staff. And when I really like wrangled that and realized like the power of what HubSpot could do for onboarding and client service, even though it was like known for being a marketing and sales engine, like I had a mission and a vision to be able to bring this to 1,000 companies by 2035, by actually building out business processes with a tech stack that had purpose and precision and was going to make it suck less for the people that were stuck in the system every day. And most importantly, like a customer centric focus that was going to drive retention long-term. Our team collectively, we have over 25 plus years of real world experience. We believe in empowering people first, leading with strategy, and just fundamentally transforming the way companies are doing business through digital transformation and tech-enabled processes. So I'm going to hand it off to Kevin. He's going to do a deep dive here. On the service object, what it is, why it matters, and really how we're leveraging it and how we're using it.
Awesome. Thanks, Noel. So what are they? We feel that they are purposely built and structured, scalable, and seamlessly connected objects built for timelines. There are default properties, which I'll demo today, that are part of the service object, which are already or we expect to be used for the same things that the default objects were built for, things like deals and tickets and contacts and companies, etc. So number one, just to make the use of the platform a lot easier for the users and admins, but then also on the reporting side. For those that might not be using HubSpot, but you are accountable for the use of HubSpot to somebody else, the ability to get data from these properties that are being updated and being improved on by HubSpot on a regular basis is really important to have. So when you're using things like tickets, deals, and or custom objects for something that they aren't technically used for, and you have to add custom properties, those custom properties are not being updated, and they are able to be used in reporting, but it's a lot more difficult to do so. And so the difference is that these are ready out of the box, with little to no dev support needed to kind of arm wrestle these objects that aren't built for start and end dates, aren't built for status, aren't built for longer than a couple of days or longer than a couple of weeks timeline. So it also will connect to, and has already started to connect to, the command centers. If you're familiar with HubSpot, the workspaces and the dashboards that they've been adding and building to things like leads and deals and even tickets now, it's a part of that already, and it's going to be a much bigger part as things roll on. And the big thing that's super exciting about this is that one of the ways in which most people have had to build out a kind of timeline-based object in HubSpot is to have a custom object. Well, if you don't have enterprise, you don't have access to a custom object. When I learned what custom objects were, I got really excited, but you have to be on the highest plan to have access to it. That is not the case when you have a default object like service object, because you just have to turn it on. It's readily available. So what can you do with a service object? This is a pretty long list. I'll try to focus on one at a time and not read every single thing out, but basically post-sale onboarding. That's why we're here. That's what Arrows does incredibly well. So after the deal is closed in HubSpot, or the opportunity is closed, whatever you call it, what happens next? You're either creating a new deal or you're creating a new ticket, as most people in the chat indicated. Maybe you have a custom object created as well. And then from there, managing that record in HubSpot. So you might be, this might be after a SaaS sign up, you might be trying to align your consulting team, creative alignment, etc. Some cool ideas that we kind of thought about here were like a new hire or a new promotion, if you're doing onboarding in that way. Just coordinating an event with all the different suppliers and all the different vendors that might be required for that. Training and certification. So, okay, we need you to get this certification, that certification. This is the first thing you need to do after you've signed up or sold. And then also, realtors. We've all, if you've ever bought property, you've been experienced, maybe you use their tool or their platform. We kind of envision that HubSpot might be something that realtors can use because of the service object as well. So that's all post-sale, kind of a timeline, if you will. After the sale, after the onboarding is complete, there's probably some service that comes thereafter. Is it a one-time service or is it a recurring service? We can envision that you can use the service object for both of those as well. So on sprints, projects, any kind of roadmap, anything that has a start and end date that is intangible, right? HubSpot has this feature called Commerce Hub and products and line items and things like that. So you can sell things online, physical things that need to be shipped or touched or held or consumed. But intangible services like professional services and client services require other tools, and this is what that is meant to do. All right, so now we're going to hop in. I need to reshare my screen, I think. Let me just drag these in. Actually, I've got all the fields up.
Perfect. I'm so excited, Kevin, for you to demo this, because we've been doing calls and I was like, Kevin, you have to tell people about this, because Kevin goes through HubSpot workflows and the service object in Arrows with the most excitement I've seen of any person. So I'm excited for you to show this off.
All right. So let's start at the very beginning. How do you turn this on? How do you activate your service object? It's actually been here for some time. I don't know if anybody has tinkered around in the settings like I do every single day. But right here at the object library, so data management on the left side, if you're an admin or if you have higher level permissions, you can access this area, and it's hit the object library. And like a psychopath, I turned all of them on a long time ago, not knowing what they were for, not knowing what they were going to do, and have been diving in ever since. One of those objects is a service object, services here. And if you click on details or hover over it, you can see what HubSpot kind of describes this object as being for, which is intangible offerings provided to customers, onboarding, consulting, etc. There are a number of default properties available all out the gate with the service object. And then obviously we have activated the arrows properties that Arrows makes available from their platform. So we just turned all of them on just to be able to use every single one of them. The ones that I want to highlight are things like amount paid, amount remaining. There's another called, I'll show them on another area, but start date, end date, and target end date. So that you can evaluate or report on, did we hit our target? How far away were we from it? What's the average? So on and so forth. So you can imagine all the things you can do with those. I've got some custom properties that you'll see when the service object actually fires. But it's very similar to other objects in that if you want to update its properties, you just open up right below the object library. You can scroll down and see the ones that you have activated. In this case, I activated services. And I just wanted to show those defaults really quickly. So let's just look at the ones that HubSpot created. And like I mentioned before, amount paid, amount remaining. What category is this service? And I started to customize some of these categories already for the different types of onboardings you might do. The pipeline, obviously in pipeline stage. So again, because this is a time-based object, any object you create, whether it's custom or tickets or deals, has a pipeline in HubSpot. So that pipeline can be generic. It can be like an agile where it's like it's not started, it's in progress, it's stuck, and it's completed. Or it can have an actual linear timeline from start to end and all the different phases that you need to use for that timeline. The one right here, status, start date, and target end date, and then total cost. So the cost of the service is something that you can actually report on, and HubSpot added this as default. So things like cost of goods sold, where you can total that up. And that is available in products, it is available in line items. I've been using products and line items for a long time for intangible services, and it's driven me nuts. So I'm, once again, very excited that the service object is available to eliminate the need to use those when they're not really supposed to be used for that purpose. All right. So what I want to show today is that onboarding is triggered after a sale, right? So in order to trigger a service object and also connect it to a Arrows onboarding plan, I have to have a deal that closes. And I already have one cooked. I just want to show you how this workflow happens. So I'm just going to really quickly do a test deal. Started in my initial deal stage, apply some amount and a fake close date, new business, give it to my tester contact with point person. I have a custom label, custom decision label, because I don't always want the contact to go into the Arrows plan. I might not, but if you want to do that, you can just create an association label and put that in your workflow. I'll show you how that's done. And let's go to the Arrows demo company. If you know definitely what service this deal is going to be for, you can apply it here. That can make some workflows easier. In this case, I'm not going to because I don't need to. My workflow does it for me. So if I hit create, and I'm not going to go back to the pipeline. I'm just going to go ahead and close this deal as if I did all the motions that I needed to close it, and it'll be closed one. Then I can go to my service index page and see that the new test deal that I just closed is now in the initial stage of my onboarding pipeline. And I do have a specific pipeline just for onboarding because I anticipate using other pipelines for other services. But this one in this case is just for onboarding. So I have my phases here, stages. I have a linear path of the different types of phases. This is kind of simulating more of like a SaaS onboarding setup where you got to prep the client, set up the portal, map their journey, do some quick wins, implement, enable, and report.
Yeah. And some like other onboarding like experiences, right? Like when I'm thinking about like the way that this can be like really enabled is like when you're dealing in construction or you're dealing in like some more tactical type businesses, like this same process, even though this is reflecting like very much as a linear SaaS model, like field service management teams, like this can be utilized in so many different ways to really track through like what's going on, even if that's like like your team member having to go out to like a site visit. So I just like want to like open up like the art of the possible about thinking about what this is capable of doing.
Yep. So some things I've set up on my view of this service object is just all about the service. So this is particularly like, is it on track? This is default, by the way. I can't even delete this. HubSpot won't let me. It's basically telling me this is going to be a very important property. I see it as kind of like the lifecycle stage of the service object. Lifecycle stage with contacts and companies is incredibly important for deals and for marketing, but for service and the service object, whether or not it is on track, delayed, failed, or succeeded, completed, very important. I do want to highlight that I did change the setting. HubSpot allows you to change the setting of a property to use like those color labels. I love them. So
I love them so much. They're so good.
If you haven't been using them, highly recommend trying to use things for enumerated or drop-down values. I did the same thing for our tiers. So we have like a Copilot, Gold, Platinum, and Diamond, and I colorize those as well. Now, you can obviously trigger those with a workflow to like what was in the deal is now what we're delivering on onboarding. I just rebuilt this for the demo purposes and didn't connect every single node, but that would have been the case. One thing that did happen in the workflow, however, is that the onboarding plan was created in arrows using my template, and it's connected. So if I want to see that, I just click on that box, and there's already some tasks, obviously because it came from the template. What I want to show behind the scenes here is, and I'm going to go to my editor view in arrows, in that my very first task is invite client to arrows. You can have your workflow invite the client to arrows automatically, but I wanted to hold this as a checkpoint for myself because what's happening behind the scenes, and I want to show this. So when I complete this task, it is going to create tasks for me in HubSpot. The only internal tasks that I have on this template that I have in this arrows plan, which you can set internal tasks. Oh, I just realized that wasn't turned on, but you can set internal tasks. So the client is doing their tasks for their onboarding. Your team is doing your onboarding tasks behind the scenes. The only ones I have now are for me to basically trigger HubSpot tasks. So that whatever I'm doing in this, in the arrows space is informing the progress of the onboarding plan, but ultimately sending me right back to HubSpot to complete work behind the scenes. Yeah. And that allows the plan coordinator to work with other team members who are also in HubSpot.
I want to give just a little high level context about this. So Kevin has worked with me for so long and he knows that I just like break systems all the time. So just like pushing it to the limits. And when we were building our arrows plans and we were saying, hey, onboarding, and I have to go in and manage each one of these plans individually and separately. And I like tabled to him and said, I want to live in HubSpot and that's where I belong. And like, that's where our team belongs and that's where we belong. And like, how do we make that happen? And that's really where like, when we started like digging in and like arrows had done the amazing thing of like going, yeah, you can trigger tasks in HubSpot now. But I was like, hold on, but how do we get it back to like, now I'm living in HubSpot, but like, it's still not talking back to arrows. So this is where like this, just like the lifeblood of this came from for us in like, really pushing the limit of like, how do we truly live inside of HubSpot day in and day out? Because I don't want to leave the CRM.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and check that first task that was for me to say, yes, I went ahead and invited this client to arrows. Now what is there for me to do? And what should happen is there should be tasks for me to complete. Might take a little bit of time. It has in the past in this demo. Yeah, of course it's not pushing back now. What did we say, Kim?
Did you actually complete that task? If you open the plan just inside the HubSpot iframe, just because on the deal, I wonder if you're using a different deal there or a different service object.
I know,
Because
I've created so many.
Okay, yeah. So if you would just open it from there and complete that task, then it should work.
Oh, the iframe. Thank you. I've got too many tabs open. Thank you.
All good. We're live troubleshooting. Okay, so now it's recognizing that the task was completed.
Yep, I saw it on arrows, but I didn't see it on HubSpot. Thank you.
There we go.
There we go. And there's my tasks. So what used to be for me, at least in arrows, is internal tasks and or required a lot of if-then conditional statements to make this actually happen, because I was using either what the next task was or the last completed task. All these tasks are now here and they have their timelines and they have their dates, right? So this process would repeat, right? You have your internal tasks, the client completes their tasks. You can also trigger tasks for yourself based on when the client completes something. And in this case, I'm not going to go back to arrows. I'm going to stay here. I don't know if I'll be able to complete the task.
Well, this is going back to what Noel said, and most teams use the CRM card and open it right in HubSpot, because it really does enable your team to just work inside HubSpot all day and not be switching between the two tabs.
Exactly. So I now have a new task because the client completed their questionnaire, which is to say, hey, review and send, so review and send client questionnaire. Now that they've completed the questionnaire, my task is to schedule the kickoff call, right? We have the information we need. We're going to update our kickoff deck and actually have it a week after, let's just say they actually signed up, or whenever they are able to schedule it. And like I said, phase by phase, task by task, you're able to move things into the HubSpot space, assign them to either yourself or to other team members to ultimately complete this service. What I'd like to show next, as we run into almost the halfway point, is just what happens when the plan is completed. So I'm going to open the plan and just complete those tasks. The final task. Move back out and refresh. So my pipeline stage, my service object, has moved to completed. And if I go back to, I'll go back to the actual board view, the Kanban board view. There's my completed arrows demo test. What probably would have happened is if it's in this stage, it moves to that stage. So it's following arrows, what's happening in arrows, even though I don't have to spend any time in it, other than just to complete the tasks. If everything was triggered by client tasks and nothing had to be done by me in arrows, it would still work here and I'd still be able to track the progress. But now that that's completed, what I actually should see is a new service. Apologies for the other demos here that I was testing, but this is directly related to the completion of the onboarding that I just did. So now we're in discovery, right? Now we're in a whole new phase for a whole new motion by our team. And this was created by that previous onboarding service, by the deal that initiated the onboarding in the first place. And I can now proceed with a whole new timeline and a whole new set of phases. So that's kind of what's going on with service object. There's a ton more I'm sure we can show, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered the basics and a couple use cases and how it connects and interacts with arrows as well. Now that I think about it, a couple more details here. So I created these cards on the left side. These are the defaults and some of my customs that I have. But like I was mentioning before, truly the big difference between the tickets and deals and custom objects and service object. Noel, did we want to show that comparison chart? I thought that was in the
Yeah. I think that would be amazing. And there's some really, really great questions coming into the chat. Like, please definitely keep those questions coming. We're definitely gonna leave time for Q&A.
Awesome.
So I think, Kevin, let's jump to like the comparison chart. You know, there's a lot of things in here that is just like, as we're thinking about what's possible and like why service object is like, really, this is purpose built for delivering service and not closing deals or solving tickets. When we think about the service object and like what is truly like the purpose behind this, it's looking at like how Arrows is integrated for onboarding, but like now can also be driven for service delivery. This is on all of the HubSpot plans, including free. As Kevin like alluded to and mentioned before, like custom objects, you have to have enterprise, which sometimes makes it cost prohibitive for certain teams. And then HubSpot is moving, and they're moving fast, and they are making updates, like really robust updates to standard service objects and their standard CRM objects. This is also going to be able to interact with Breeze. So all of like the AI movement that's happening inside HubSpot with Breeze is going to really be like you're going to see this continue to get developed. And then they've already pulled this into a centralized workspace, very similar to what they did with the sales workspace and the help desk workspace for tickets. They've already created this customer success workspace. We have already come up and run up against some limitations that we are really hoping and going to continue to provide feedback for them to make sure that they're like connecting the dots, because in that workspace, it doesn't connect the service object yet as a revenue piece. And that is, we're hoping we're going to see that come across the finish line pretty soon. And then just really looking at how you can get like time and stage analysis and reporting, like delivery of time, like your timeline management and like your cost of goods sold reporting. Like those things are really powerful when we're looking at how do you actually centralize your business inside of HubSpot where everything else is already working. We love custom objects just as much as the next person, but we also know that every single time that you deploy a custom object, it's disconnected from all of the amazing developments that the HubSpot team is doing. So you lose those benefits because you can't tie it into the rest of the workspaces.
Yep. Yeah, and just to qualify a little bit of the check marks under deals and tickets here, that's, when you look at this and you go, all right, well, service object does a couple more things than deals and tickets, big deal. Everything that was mentioned here can technically be done or is a feature of deals and tickets as it relates to HubSpot and or Arrows, but they're not quite meant for those last couple of things that Noel mentioned and that are on this chart, like tracking timeline delivery. Tickets are meant to be open for a couple of hours to a couple of days. If you've got a SLA on your tickets, if you're using that feature, you may have been able to separate your support pipeline if you're doing actual ticket, using tickets for what HubSpot intended it for, as well as using it for onboarding. And if you're trying to use it for both, it's really difficult to do the brain surgery to kind of separate the neurons and make it so that one does this and one does that, and they don't overlap, and the reporting doesn't get messed up because we only want to track this pipeline versus that pipeline. And again, if and when you're asking Breeze intelligence to help you with a problem, on your deals or on your tickets, it's going to answer in the context of those objects and what they're meant for, not necessarily. And it would have much better answers if you were using the service object, because it recognizes what it is and what it was meant to do. Whereas all the way on the custom object, I think we understand at this point that, like, again, they're great. Custom objects are great. What we like to use them for is data silos, adding more data to other objects to qualify them and classify them in a way that you otherwise couldn't, or you don't want that information to be in the same like company or contact record. But when it comes to deals, tickets, and service objects, there's some kind of a timeline, there's some kind of a date, there's some kind of a dollar amount associated with them. And that's where custom objects start to kind of degrade in their value, because they're not backed up by Breeze, they're not backed up by HubSpot feature improvement, and then the reporting side as well.
Kev, let's jump to why migrating.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea.
So yeah, so you want to use the right tool for the right job, like we mentioned. Deals and tickets may be getting the job done, but service object can certainly do it better. Tickets are reactive, time-sensitive report. Deals are closing and forecasting revenue. Custom objects are blank slates and they're data silos. They're helpful for helpful because you can do anything you want with them. But they're not helpful for this because you have to add in all of the features that the service object at this point is meant to do. So therefore, don't rebuild what already exists. You have access to the service object. You can turn it on. Depending on how many custom objects or workflows or reports you've done for your tickets and or deal pipeline that is related to onboarding, rebuilding that in service object is something we highly recommend. Because those, like I mentioned before, those conditional filters, those workflow branches, everything that's an if-then statement that's required to do this, but not do that because we're using this object for onboarding that we shouldn't be, is where, this becomes a priority. And, the native features that you get from service object are included. And then having sales on onboarding and delivery, those three phases that I demoed today, what happens when a deal closes, what happens when I close my onboarding, and what happens after that, is aligned in all in one space, all happening in HubSpot. You could see, even though I aired at the beginning of the demo, you could see that I could stay in HubSpot and essentially complete the onboarding process. Then tracking your timelines, knowing what's done, knowing what's stuck, and so on and so forth. The big thing here, the business use case is that the continual need to add or change or fix or optimize a deal, a ticket, or a custom object, especially as HubSpot keeps building on deals and keeps building on tickets, you're going to have to keep stripping off things that you don't need on your onboarding process. So moving to an object that is built for and meant for that, and will eliminate the need for you to continue to add resources and time and frustration to doing just that. Kind of avoiding and blocking out the cool things that HubSpot's doing in deals and tickets, but that are not purposeful for onboarding. Ready to jump?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh.
Yeah. So we have set a 100-day challenge. This is, we've just made a call as a team that over the next 100 days, we're going to move delivery, where it should have belonged all along, directly inside the CRM. We believe that the CRM should be the operating system and the core of the business, not just for deals and not just for support tickets, really for everything else in between. And the service object paired with arrows gives us the first real shot that we have to actually make that happen natively. We truly believe that this is the future of RevOps, and it's a commitment to not just bettering the tools, but to bettering our systems and bettering what we're delivering to our customers. And truly, we're inviting others to do the same. We know how hard it is to move through new process like this. So if you are thinking about building this, we would love to collaborate, because we really think that this is a game changer for the future of what HubSpot can do and the way it can deliver service for clients. So we'll open it up to questions. I know there's some really good questions in the chat. So I would love to just like start to tackle some of those questions. Kit, I know you said that you've been collating questions for us. So thank you. One of the things that had come in, I'm just going to take like a second to go through these because there were some good questions that were coming in as we were going through.
Yeah, I think one of the first questions that I saw that maybe would be hopefully easier for you all to answer, but Karina was asking, how do you deal with the fact that emails, calls, et cetera, are not connected to the service object?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So first and foremost, Arrows is a first mover, and we love that about them. And it's one of the reasons why we love collaborating with their team so much, because they are taking first mover opportunities to connect to new service objects, to be able to really make this integrated with app partners. We know that there are a lot of app partners who are not moving in that direction and they're not taking those initiatives. So we are actually working with some other app partners to take another first mover advantage in connecting to the service object. So we are pushing and trying to lead in that initiative. We have some, we not done yet, but like have inspired quite a few app partners to really look at this and evaluate the way in which they're connecting to HubSpot and to get them to move as quickly as the Arrows team is. So it's, right now when we're looking at emails, like we email directly from HubSpot. So we're emailing from the service object. We're not emailing from our Gmail. We're not sending, right? Like we're living and breathing inside of HubSpot. So when we're looking at like our emails connected to the service object, for us from a process standpoint, and what we recommend to our clients is live inside your CRM. That's where you're living and breathing. So your email should be there. And looking at the calls, we know calls are not connected right now. If you're doing outbound dialing, from HubSpot, as opposed to like a connected app, like a different connected app, like this is where like, where are you making that call from? How are you making that call? We know that there's a lot of things that like roll back up to the deals from a lot of other platforms. Even like Fathom Note Taker, right? Like they continue to push meeting summaries to the object that they were originally connected to. So this is a time for development right now. And we truly believe that like with the right partners moving in the right direction, and as this gets enough attention, that the other app partners are going to move in that direction. Karina, that's a great question though. And we know that there's challenges right now. This is about like development and like it's new and what's possible as we're coming down the line.
Yep.
Cool. One of the other questions was, how does the service object reconcile with start and end dates in an Arrows plan, from Ben? So I can answer that one. I actually just played with it when I saw that question because I wasn't sure, Ben. So while Noel and Kevin were talking, I was testing it in HubSpot. So you can basically set a workflow to say, like, if the Arrows end date or completion date is known, you can update that property, which is cool. Like that they allow you to update the property value so you can have the dates match. We don't have a way in any way right now to sync HubSpot date properties into the Arrows start and completion date. So those are only right now populated inside Arrows based on when the Arrows plan is created. And then you can edit the completion date inside Arrows, but it's generally based on when the plan was marked as complete. So we don't have the ability to read that and overwrite that inside Arrows, but you can overwrite that property or have the property match based on the Arrows values.
Right.
But it's a thing that comes up a lot. I took a screenshot of that question and I will share it with our product team because people do have the desire to like have a HubSpot property update the Arrows start and target date. So I think it's something that we're very aware of, just haven't built yet.
Yeah. And that's something that I built in and recognized as well, is that the start date of Arrows can influence the start date on the service object, but not the other way. Mm-hmm. And most onboarding, at the close of the deal isn't like today or tomorrow. You're not going to just all of a sudden start onboarding right off the bat. So if it's an intangible service, especially, So setting that in a future date and then being able to adjust it in arrows to when the actual start date will happen, that will help continue to make that in sync. Just make sure that your HubSpot workflow has re-enrollment so that if that start date changes, it can re-enroll the workflow and then update. So I've got it set on the first instance of the creation of the object, as well as when that object is, when that property is updated. And same thing with the target end date. The actual end date is similar to like the close date of a deal. HubSpot will close the deal on the day that you close it, but it also will set it ahead of time, kind of like arrows, how they set ahead on their tasks and whatnot. Just got to pay attention to that and work in your workflows accordingly.
Cool. One of the next questions, I can actually pop it on the screen here, but can you explain further on the two functions not supported by deals, delivery timeline management and COGS reporting that you had on that slide previously?
Sure. So like delivery timeline management in terms of like start date and end date. How long has been something been in a stage? Those are things that you can technically report on if you make it work one way or another using a deal. The difference between that is and this is why it kind of maybe answers another question. The difference between that is the on status or the status, the on track, the stuck and success. So similar to like the status of a ticket, managing the timeline from a deal is just seeing where it's at in the stage. It's just understanding, are we close? What day is it today? What day is the end date? And how many days do we have left? And obviously you can do that in both. But the actual management of how many projects do we have right now? How many are in this timeline and are they stuck or not is only something that a project manager can usually tell. There's probably I always believe there's a pattern that you can recognize. There's data that you can add to a record to have it alert you and have it notify you and say like, this is not on track anymore. And here's why. Obviously it could be how many days do we have left and how many tasks do we have left? And you can do some math to kind of average them out. But again, the information that you're now able to put into a service object and the specific call out that I am seeing, the signal that I'm seeing from HubSpot that status is important because I cannot delete it, is telling me that it is specifically meant to help you manage delivery timelines. Whereas deals are meant to help you close, close deals and forecast revenue. So in the pipeline of your deals is a number, and it's based on probability of closure and probability of and the amount that's in that pipeline, the total amount that's in the pipeline. I'm hoping that like there's something extremely similar for service object, which is how far along is this, right? How many tasks are complete or how far along is this service object in that stage, and at what percentage of completion is this stage? Now I could build those out right now. I could put a bunch of custom properties and make that happen. But if that becomes a native feature, which I'm just really predicting it will be, that then service object immediately becomes like a no-brainer of like, oh, this is meant to help me manage my timelines.
I think it's a good point too, that like, because this is specifically designed for service delivery, that is why HubSpot has designed it. They will continue adding features that are compatible with service delivery. So I think even though we might not be seeing some of that yet, if everyone who is using that object for service delivery is needing the same features, that's kind of the benefit versus deals, where they're always going to be prioritizing what does the sales team need for deals, what do you need to forecast for revenue. So this is giving a specific space to be able to say, hey, there are this many companies that are using the service object now. They have these specific requests, and so they can make changes to those individual objects.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you've activated the customer success dashboard yet, or customer success workspace, there's a couple of boxes, call out boxes and meta boxes in there that are starting to indicate what the use case for that workspace is. And one of them is, task completion and essentially alluding to like on-time delivery. So that's why that call out was there. On the COGS side of things, you can put cost in your products and your line items, which are associated with a deal. again, they are meant for like deliverables. They're meant for SKUs. They're meant for things that are going to be, shipped and whatnot. So the total cost that is a default HubSpot property that's available with the service object is where that call out is coming from. So associating costs of line items and having that be totaled by the cost of line items that are existing in the deal or even in the service object is kind of what I expect that to be. And I expect that to be exactly why that property exists, to manage your total cost of all services being rendered right now.
Cool.
Yeah, and also just like peeling off that and like peeling the layers of that, not natively function. Time tracking is not a native function inside of HubSpot yet. And I say yet because I think what we're going to start to see is really like, how are they moving into this space? Like, we have already like collaborated with another solutions partner who has like brought time tracking into their tasks natively inside of HubSpot, has like worked to develop the entire workflow around like how to pull time tracking in. So if you are in a time tracking based type business, as opposed to a project service delivery, and you're looking for those types of insights, it takes development and it takes strategy to move through that. But we have already seen that that's possible. We've already worked with another partner who we're collaborating with and saying like, hey, what are you doing? What are we doing? How are we building this out so that we can continue to move the needle on that? Because we know, as we're looking at like, how do you move out of project management? The things that are important about that is hey, I know that my team started and stopped this task. And like, there are integrations for us to be able to lean into and develop that and make sure that that's working in the way that works for those businesses. And again, that's leveraging like what is possible from an integration standpoint, on like, how are we tying that into service? How are we tying that into the task? And how are we tying that out? To be able to drive COGS reportings, so that it is truly all living in HubSpot. David's got a great question on like, have we seen this like loop 360 into the success post service for companies with a go-to-market that's relying on expansion with accounts? I think that this is exactly why we're so excited about like ditching the project management tool, is because we can get visibility and line of sight to this. Where we really see this going is like, we already know that Arrow's customers are seeing a 20-30, like up to like 23. One of your customers have reported 23% like additional retention rate because of their onboarding experience. We believe that we're going to see the same thing happen in service, and like really actually tie the flywheel back to how you're informing your marketing, how you're informing your sales, and your cross-sell, upsell opportunities. And also, like, we didn't touch on this, but in that new workspace, they're starting to tie out things that are related to your customer health score. Those things right now are tied out to tickets. They're not tied out to service, but I do believe that HubSpot's going to move to where you can start to leverage things around the service object that are related to customer health scores. That's where we think, and we're like, we think that that's where this is going, because they're really starting to focus on this other piece of the business that really truly HubSpot hasn't been known for, and they're moving very quickly and diligently to tackle it.
Yeah, and if you think about it, they just launched the customer success workspace. Was it last fall only? Or yeah, I think it was last fall. So like HubSpot is really just starting to get involved, or even start to really think about post sales at all.
Yeah.
So the service object is very, from what I've heard in the conversations we've had about it, is that it is designed to integrate with the customer success workspace, the customer success tools, health scores, things like that, because it's a piece that HubSpot is taking very seriously, and we obviously are grateful for that. We've had so many customer success teams that are trying to run their processes in HubSpot, and now it's possible, and they just keep investing into it.
So there's already a tab. If you have access to the customer success workspace, there's already a tab for services, and everything I just showed today exists in the pipelines for that. So the pipelines are here to visualize in this workspace. It only makes sense that it's going to be, a part of it from probably also from a health score standpoint. And I can confidently say that it is, in the sense that if you're using HubSpot for tickets, the health score is great because like it just, you can automatically say, okay, how often are they sending tickets? How have I been doing with my SLAs? Are they active? Are they not active? Well, even if they're not using tickets, you can tell whether or not they've been active because you initiate it. If you're proactive with your customers from a customer success standpoint and they're responding back, that's activity. So just by using it for that purpose alone, on a 30, 60, 90-day follow-up post onboarding, you can actually generate the health score, and you have total control over what the score is supposed to be anyway. So you can actually use the health score even before HubSpot like announces that you can. It's already available if you have access to it. But yeah, the other tab here that's really exciting that I keep talking about today is revenue. Revenue is here. It's tied to deals. There's a feature in the back end that you can use when you're setting up your service object. I don't think it's worth demoing today because it's so new, and Noel and I kept kind of like running into little roadblocks here and there, but it's really exciting at what's coming. Yeah. So I think that, you know, conceptually, if you're using deals, tickets, or custom objects, you're already using HubSpot and you're already kind of like dealing with those things. This is just going to have, it has a ceiling right now, but the ceiling is going to keep getting higher and higher and higher. And the floor will also get raised at the same time. Like you're going to be lifted up towards that ceiling by riding the wave that HubSpot is kind of generating with this stuff.
Yeah, and we would absolutely open up and love to like work with anybody and like collaborate. Like I know that we're gonna track this internally for ourselves, right? So like we're gonna do, you know, we're going to go down the path of like quantifying this and like doing case studies, because we think it's that important to actually like tactically and tangibly track like what's the impact and like what is possible. So like if anybody is like interested in like just being able to like collaborate in that space and go like, hey, you know, how could we track this, or what could we track, or what are some good KPIs that we can really look around the service object, for even you to go do your own case study on this, to say like, hey, this is what we did, you know, this is what we did in service. Like we would love to be a part of that conversation. David, you asked another like really like important question about lifecycle stage, comparing status to lifecycle stage. And like, before we wrap up, I want to make sure we address that, because what I actually think is that status is going right where your lifecycle stage kind of ends at customer right now, unless they move to evangelist or they're classified in some other way. But status, I actually think gives you a lot more visibility into where your customer is in the process. So like, are they new to you? Are they, right? Like when we're thinking about status, we're thinking about the native feature is about the timeline of project management, but the custom the custom property opportunity is for you to be able to track that through based on where they're at in stage, to actually give you better visibility and better reporting of like, where is that customer actually in now the life cycle of being a customer with you. And that does require like custom properties and like thinking around like the use case that you have for your business. But I think that this actually like improves that line of sight. And I know that you had said like it requires extra clicks, but it shouldn't. It should be automated based on the actions that your team is taking. So it should update based on where they're at in their life cycle. It should like where they're at in the pipeline, or based on a particular task completion. Or if you can imagine, like they come into your onboarding pipeline and like it's status, it's, you know, they've got marked with status new and they're moving through onboarding, and we've now updated status to like active onboarding. And then once that active onboarding is completed and closed, like moving them to like your service, whether that's a one-time delivery or that's a recurring service that you're enrolling them in, like that service can have its own type of status along the way, that I think can actually really open up the visibility of like, how many clients do you have in active onboarding, and like what's the health of that active onboarding? How many clients do you have in service delivery? What's the health of that service delivery?
Awesome. Well, we're at time right now. So we will send out the recording out afterward, and we'll include resources to connect with Noel and Kevin and 21B. And if you haven't checked out Arrows, I know we have a lot of customers here, but if you haven't checked out Arrows, we'll include resources there too. But before we go, Noel and Kevin, how can if people right now want to reach out to you or get in touch, what's the best way?
Yeah, they can send an email or go to our website, fill out a form on the website. So either one of those ways works great. I'll drop our website in the chat here.
Yeah.
Okay.
LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn. Yeah. LinkedIn's also great.
Awesome. Well, this was great. Kevin and Noel, thanks so much for running through all of this. This is, again, like we've said it so much, but there's so much more coming. So keep an eye out. I think we and 21B will probably be creating lots of resources around the service object. So keep an eye out for that stuff, and we'll keep everyone updated. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.